This is where we finished the first video, and while you're watching me welding, let me tell you how I ended up with this boat. Due to the poor condition of the hull, the previous owner chose not to repair Willow, as she wanted to avoid the high costs involved and decided to sell the boat instead. The hull was corroded with holes, making repairs very expensive. She offered to sell it for just £1, despite the fact that she purchased her not long ago for a much higher price. So, as you think, the purchase was done without a survey, which is not a wise choice. But unfortunately, this occurs frequently. If you're planning to buy a boat, don't make this mistake. You can't truly evaluate the boat's condition without bringing it ashore. Even if the boat is on land, you can't judge the condition of the hull just by looking at it. A pre-purchase survey is the only way to determine the hull's thickness. There are several affordable ultrasonic thickness gauges available on the market for measuring metal thickness. However, I wouldn't recommend anyone to use them on their own to check boat's condition. These devices are good for measuring the thickness of new steel, but if the hull is corroded inside, you can't see it obviously. Obtaining accurate thickness readings become challenging. This can lead to unreliable results, and only a skilled surveyor can truly determine if the measurements are valid. By the way, when using expensive devices, we struggle with the same problem. For example, 1 mm of steel turns into 5 or 6 mm of rust, which means there are a lot of such places in the boat. An additional difficulty is that boats does not corrode evenly. There are places where corrosion occurs faster than in other places, and the surveyor focuses on them. These devices tell us the thickness of the steel at the point where it's applied. It provides no information about the metal thickness just a few centimeters away. Also, there are damages on older vessels, which is unavoidable, and they can be categorized into two types: cosmetic and structural. And I think it's important to leave it to the surveyor to assess it. Another thing to consider is the actual value of the boat. There are many boats that are being renewed, but as it's from the wrong side. I'll explain you what I mean. Sometimes I come across boats that have been nicely restored inside, put up for sale, and are often sold for a lot of money. However, the renovation of any boat should always start from the underwater part, because this is the most important part of any boat. And if it's in very bad condition, it will unfortunately be the most expensive part of renovation. It would be very unpleasant if it turned out that you had to scrap a boat with a beautifully renovated interior. Unfortunately, this happens because despite the fact spending a significant amount of money on inside renovation, as well as the hull, doesn't significantly increase the value of the boat. When assessing the price, the key factors to consider are its age and overall technical condition. A nicely renovated boat will be priced similarly to other boats in the area that are in good condition. This is due to a straightforward reason. When the purchase of a boat is financed with a bank loan, it remains the bank's property until all payments are completed. If the buyer is unable to continue paying the installments for any reason, the bank will sell the boat to recover its funds. If it's priced too high compared to similar boats, it may not attract buyers, putting the surveyor in a very difficult position, which is why they avoid assigning a higher value. When you purchase a boat for cash, it's a different story, but you have to remember that it may be a challenge when it comes to sell the boat later on. In the end, while a car will just sit in front of your house waiting for you to get it fixed, a boat may not be so forgiving. I'm talking about it so much because many people who are buying a boat for the first time don't realize how important a pre-purchase survey is. A lot of people don't even know that a pre-purchase survey exists, which is why they don't get one. I've seen some advices online about using epoxy filler to fix underwater pits, but honestly, I don't think that's a great idea. Epoxy and steel are totally different materials, and they respond differently to temperature changes and stress. Eventually, they're going to separate. It's just a matter of time. I even seen a YouTube video where a marina was promoting this kind of service. And seriously, if anyone suggests you using epoxy filler to patch up the steel hull of your boat, you should definitely be alarmed. In that case, when you want to sell your boat, the pre-purchase survey report will say that the condition of the hull cannot be assessed because some kind of filler has been applied and needs to be removed first. This won't sound encouraging to a new buyer and certainly not to the bank. Or at least, that's what it should be written there. At this point, you can see me trying to overplate around the propeller, which is a bit tricky because I don't know yet that in the future I'll replace the prop shaft with a bigger one, which means I'd have to cut out and replace the whole stern tube. If I did it now, it would be a lot easier, but I'm sure we'll get there. This is 6mm steel, and if it's painted regularly, should last for a very long time. It's typical thickness for most boats like this. Many narrow boats have base plate and counter plates made of thicker steel, 10mm or more, but even 6mm is a lot. It's because a narrow boat design is simple, so thick steel sheets are easy to work with. Seagoing sailboats, even quite large ones with round shapes, are often made from 4mm steel because of difficulties in shaping, despite the fact that seawater is way more corrosive than fresh water. And keeping it painted is super important in this case. Mild steel, which you see here, is only good for building boats because we have paints that keep it protected. Narrow boats should be painted every 2-3 years, depends on how much you cruise. I do the counterplate the same way, but I have to hold both templates and steel plates up with jacks. What you see, these holes are in the underwater part. I just tapped the rust out of this place with a hammer. there are many more such holes in the hull. It's hard to believe this boat made it here. Only after pulling her ashore did it become clear how bad she was. The steel plates are bigger than the boat's outline, so they stick out on the sides, because the edges will be cut off when everything is welded. I have to press steel very tightly because boat has to fit in narrow locks. The original locks were 7 feet 2 inches wide, but over the years the walls of many of them have moved inwards because of ground pressure, and some can now be as narrow as 7 feet 1 inch only. My boat is 6 feet 10 inches wide, so there is significant clearance, but I have to be careful. The length will also be governed by the locks. Most were built to 72 feet. My boat is 40 feet long, so 6 mm steel plus 2 mm gap between shouldn't be an issue. But there is another reason why there shouldn't be any gap there, because during a collision the weld may crack in that place, and this place is at high risk of damage. As you see, I've jumped ahead a bit and welded a few more plates of camera to keep things from getting boring. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you!